Hi, everyone. For social studies today, we are going to learn about three branches of government. And before we get started, I want us to think about the question who or what gives the government power over us? Who gives the government power to make decisions for us? Take a minute to think about your answer. Now, the people, so the people living in the United States, give the government power. So we give ourselves the consent to be governed. And that means we give permission to the government leaders to rule. And this is usually through voting. So by voting, we give the power to government leaders um, to make some choices. Our objective for today is that we can describe how the Constitution divides power between the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. And we will learn specifically what those branches are. Later this week, we'll learn how they make sure one branch doesn't become too powerful through the systems of checks and balances. But today, we're just focused on the division of power between those three branches. Our language objective, we can read about how the Constitution divides power into separate branches of government and uses the systems of checks and balances, and we'll use a graphic organizer to do this. Now, the Constitution divides the government into three branches with different powers and responsibilities. So, the first branch we have is the legislative branch, and that is housed at the US Capitol. Then we have the executive branch, which you hear a lot about, especially this year with the election, and that is housed at the White House. And then we have the judicial branch, and that is housed at the Supreme Court. And some of you might know some Supreme Court justices like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and you heard a lot about her when she passed away last year. So we have these three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. Now you're wondering, what does each branch do? Why was it divided this way, and what does each branch do? Now, the legislative branch is outlined in Article 1 of the Constitution, so one of the first parts of the Constitution. And the main job of the legislative branch is to make laws, so to write bills that are going to hopefully become, or that they hope will become laws. Now, the legislative branch, like I said, makes laws, and it is divided into two houses. It is a bicameral house. So the House of Representatives and the Senate make up Congress. And remember when we talked about, when we learned about how there was a debate over balancing representation in the government based on the size of the population of each state or having equal say for each state. And the big states at the time, like Virginia, wanted representation in government to be based off of population. And that made sense to them. They have more people, they should have a greater voice. So they proposed the Virginia plan. Smaller states, like New Jersey, were afraid that their voices would be lost and that the big states would have too much power. And they proposed the New Jersey plan, saying that each state has the same number of representatives. And with the Great Compromise, or the Connecticut Compromise, we decided on having two houses. So first we have the House of Representatives, and this is one of the two lawmaking houses of the Congress, and we have the same number of representatives from each state. I'm sorry, let me take that back. We have the House of Representatives, and it has the number of representatives from each state is based on population. So this, obviously, California and Texas now would have more representatives than Massachusetts because they have a bigger population. So this gives a voice to the bigger states. Now we have the Senate, which is another lawmaking house in Congress, and it has two representatives for each state. So this was taking the small states and their voice in government into account so they wouldn't be drowned out by the bigger states. So each state has 2 senators, and obviously right now we have 50 states, so there are 100 senators. So the House of Representatives and the Senate make up Congress, which is the legislative branch, and they make laws. Our next branch is the executive branch, and this is outlined in Article 2 of the Constitution. And the executive branch is responsible for carrying out the laws or making sure that they are followed and executed across all states. Now, the executive branch does have a power that other branches don't have. They can reject a bill and prevent it from becoming a law. So if the president doesn't think that a bill proposed by the legislative branch, and a bill is a law before it's approved, he can veto it and reject it there. So the executive branch carries out the laws. Finally, our third branch outlined in Article 3 is the judicial branch. Judicial, and we should be thinking of the word judge here, judicial. And this branch of government interprets or makes sense of laws. Now, interpret means to tell or explain, understand the meaning of something. And the judicial branch can decide if a law is constitutional, meaning that it aligns with the Constitution, or it's unconstitutional. It goes against the Constitution. And the Supreme Court, we have 9 Supreme Court justices, interpret laws in cases that people think go against the Constitution. All right. Later, you're going to watch a short brain pop video to get more details and more information about our branches, our legislative branch, our judicial branch, and our executive branch. Today, your job is going to be to read and research to learn more about the responsibilities of the different branches of government. As you read sections 14.3, 14.4, and 14.5 in your textbooks or the book online, you're going to ask yourself, what is the main job of the branch? So what is the main job of the legislative branch? What is the main job of the executive branch? What is the main job of the judicial branch? Who are the members and leaders of this branch? And finally, what powers or obligations does this branch have that other branches don't have? Remember, we said that in the executive branch, the president has veto power. No other branch has that. You're going to use a brochure here to take your notes. So like I said here, when you ask yourselves what's the main responsibility or main job, you're going to write it in the first 3 lines here using complete sentences. The main job of the legislative branch is, the main job of the executive branch is, the main job of the judicial branch is. Then here the members are leaders. So who makes up the legislative branch? Who makes up the executive branch? Who makes up the judicial branch? There's going to be more than one answer here. You're thinking about the 2 houses for the legislative branch. In addition to the president, who else is a member or leader in the executive branch? Then finally, for the obligations, like we said, that's where you'll write about the powers they have. And you can use bullet points for that. All right. So that is your job today, to watch that brain pop video and then do the reading in sections 14.3, 14.4, and 14.5 and use those 2 sources, brain pop in the textbook, to complete the first 3 parts of your brochure. We will learn more about checks and balances tomorrow, so how we prevent one branch of government from having too much power. All right, good work today, everyone.